We are here at the Counteract USA Resolve to Stand Conference in Rogers, Arkansas. I'm here with former U.S. Congressman Louis Gohmert, who is joining us tonight. Welcome to Northwest Arkansas.
Thank you, Abby. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Do you mind just kind of talking us through what you're going to be talking about tonight? Kind of some of the key points.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really anxious to find out what I'm going to talk about tonight. No, I'm just kidding. I was told that I should talk about being a Christian in Babylon. Well, Washington, D.C. is not actually Babylon, but and one of the things I was most surprised about, Abby, being in Congress when I got there was how many really wonderful Christians are in Congress.
Right.
The problem became not that there were not enough Christians, but that too many Christians were easily talked out of Christian positions because what was drilled in more than being a Christian was being here's the term, team player. You got to be a team player. And so anyway, I'll talk about that and how important it is to stand up for what you know is right, even when it's unpopular. And look, we're in trouble. We've got debt that is unheard of. Mm-hmm. The debt to gross domestic product, normally when it gets to be equal, 100%, then your economy collapses. Well, that happened several years ago. We're now between 120 and 130% debt to GDP. That's economy that could collapse if we don't get on track. And what happens? Congress has not been stepping up and reining in the debt. It's still $2 trillion a year. So that could kill us. Our military is no longer preparing for war, fighting, being their principal thing. They're concerned about sex transition. They're concerned about what your pronouns are. When you're in a ditch with a buddy and you're being overwhelmed by superior forces, pronouns don't really matter. It's, being able to fight, being the best trained possible. There are all kinds of ways. Our electric grid is in some trouble nationally. There are just so many areas where this country could collapse. Mm-hmm. There's still a little time to get things fixed, but people have got to start standing up for what's right.
Absolutely. How would you say that your faith played into your career, your decisions that you made in Congress?
Well, big difference, career and Congress. With regard to career, that took a lot of prayer. High school, college. I had an Army scholarship in college. I knew I was going to the Army for 4 years active duty. What to do after that if we weren't at war, which we weren't. So there has never been a major decision I've made in my life about career, about schools, without a great deal of prayer and just a feeling of peace that this is what I'm supposed to do. Whereas in Congress, there are so many, and they love to create gray areas. They say, well, this is a gray area. You really can't say this or that. When it comes back to principle, yeah, you can compromise on this amount versus this amount, but when it comes to founding principles, there's no room for compromise on founding principles that have allowed us to become the greatest nation and at one time the most free nation. We're not the most free anymore, but according to the studies. So there are a lot of things we can talk about, and I'll be taking questions, so it'll be interesting to see where people's hearts are, what they're interested in.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see those questions as well. So one last question.
Sure.
There's a phrase that gets thrown out a lot in culture and in the media, and it's about legislating morality. And there's this idea that we should never legislate morality.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Well, and actually, the expression, the way I heard it growing up was, you cannot legislate morality. And I felt kind of clever when I repeated that when I was in college at Texas A&M. Well, you can't legislate morality. Well, you can't legislate morality. And that seemed to be a game winner of a statement. End of debate, you can't legislate morality. What I came to realize as a lawyer, and then as a judge, it was hammered even more clear to me, and as a Chief Justice and in Congress, every single law we have, every one of them, is a legislation of someone's morality. Every one. So the question is not whether you can legislate morality, it is whose morality is going to be legislated. And what we've run into now is that Christians have allowed a lack of morality and amorality to be what governs. And that's a disaster. It leads to chaos. And frankly, those who want us to become a Marxist nation, some say communist, socialist, progressivist, whichever you want to call it, but it's really Marxist. To get there, you need to create chaos. And the best way to create chaos is to have a lack of morality. And then it will create chaos. And then the Marxists come in with a totalitarian government and say, we will save everything. And that's how you get there. When I was in college, between my sophomore and junior year, I was on a summer exchange program to something that was called the Soviet Union. And back then, I'd had 2 years of Russian, but I saw it back then. And actually, Dostoevsky, great Russian novelist, he wrote a lot of papers in the 1800s and countered some idiot named Marx. And he pointed out the problem with Marxism is not economic. Now, we know that's a huge problem with Marxism. He said the problem with Marxism is atheism.
Right.
And I saw that the summer I was in the Soviet Union. For example, there was only one seminary that was allowed. They only allowed 40 students a year, the Russian Orthodox. It was outside, it seemed like a couple hours right outside of Moscow, a place called Zagorsk. And as we're turning into the gate of this little seminary, there's a building, and the side of it has a picture of Lenin's face. And above it and below it said, Lenin z nami. Lenin is with us. It's very clear. They're saying, you may be going into this place where they talk about God, but what you need to remember is it's Lenin who is with us. Well, I'd already seen Lenin's corpse in Lenin's tomb, and it looked like he might have had a rubber ear, but I knew Lenin wasn't with us.
Right.
But that is so important, that the government be God in a Marxist, socialist, progressivist, communist society. And that leads to the worst morality because killing, whatever, it doesn't matter. And that's why communism has been responsible for more mass death than any form of, the worst dictator, Hitler, he didn't come close to the number that were killed in the Soviet Union and China under communist leaders. So this is where people who are not very smart, oh, they're well educated, but they're educated beyond their means because they don't realize how brutal things get once you go Marxist.
Right.
More than you
Absolutely.
wanted to hear? I
Oh,
hope
no,
not.
that was excellent. Thank you so much. I'm so
Yeah.
looking forward to hearing you speak tonight.
Well,
Thank you so much for joining us.
Abby, thanks for talking to me.
Absolutely.